Cool. Thank you.
There you
Uh,
go. Hmm.
Thank you guys for inviting me to speak, share my experiences. My name is Joseph Renda Jr. You guys can call me Joe. You can check my work out at jrenda-art.com or follow me on Instagram at j.renda_artists. So by sharing my story today, I want to inspire you guys to achieve your goals as an artist and hopefully give you some advice or some takeaways that you can use in the future. So to start out, I wanted to start with these three portraits of my father who worked as a Chicago firefighter for 39 years and is now retired. I took art, as most kids do, in high school as kind of an easy A blow-off class. I didn't draw much as a kid and never really took an interest until then. These three portraits show not only my progression, but what you can achieve with a passion and dedication to something that you love. I like to say, though, my dad didn't get better at drawing, or I didn't get better at drawing. My dad just got better looking over the years. So my goals as an artist early on were the pursuit of classical technique and the understanding of how to represent reality. So basically, I wanted to learn how to draw and paint really well. I highly suggest you guys do something like this. Pick something that you can recreate over the years, and it'll show not only your skill improving, but a physical impact of your hard work. So as I mentioned, I started drawing as a freshman. I just turned 25, so it'll be about 11 years ago. I'd also like to mention that I was a terrible student in school. I was constantly drawing in class, not paying attention. I actually barely graduated. I really didn't know what I wanted to do back then. I had two amazing art teachers who kind of saw something in me and helped guide me toward a career path in art. And I didn't even think I was going to go to college. But my sophomore year, I applied to the American Academy of Art and was accepted. And I'll get into that a little bit later. These are some examples of what I was making back then. I was very much interested in detail, especially with pen and ink. The painting in the palette in the middle right was the painting that won the Congressional Art Show and hung up in Washington, D.C. for a year. And kind of from there on, I really was like, oh, there's something to this. You know, I'm interested in it. People seem to be liking what I'm making. The skateboard, I created a skateboard company for a year called Big Shot Skateboards and painted and sold skateboards to my friends. The mural on the bottom left was in the ceramics room at my high school. And I worked at an animal hospital when I was 15. That was my first job. And I did a whole bunch of pet portraits, which you guys can make an insane amount of money doing pet portraits because people love their animals. And I actually made more money doing the pet portraits than I did working. So while I was in high school too, I left the animal hospital. And when I was about 17, I worked as Michael's Custom Framing. And I took over their art instructor position. And through working at Michael's, I met a teacher at St. William's Middle School, which had recently cut their funding for the art program. And I volunteered to do an after-school art program for anyone that was interested. I did both for about 2 years and absolutely loved it. Teaching helps you understand everything better. And if you really understand the subject, you're able to relay that message to anyone. If you guys can find jobs in the art field, go for it. Jobs like Michael's, Blick, the Art Institute, they might not be fun jobs and working in retail, stuff like that, but you're able to meet like-minded people and get pretty good discounts on art supplies, which could definitely help you if you go to college. So like I mentioned, I went to a 4-year art college, and by no means is that the only option in the art world to succeed. The American Academy of Art is a technical school, which means that they focus more on the how than the why of an artistic practice. So what you'll be doing in your first year is going back to the basics, probably some stuff that you guys are learning in high school, they're gonna reteach you. They're going to teach you and drill into your brain perspective, color theory, value scales, anatomy, and so much more. As I mentioned, I wasn't the best student in high school, but when I went to the academy, I went with the mindset that this is what I was going to do with the rest of my life. College in any field is not cheap, and if you do go, take advantage of everything that you can. You need to understand that being an artist is not an easy career path, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication. There's no one there to hold your hand, no cheat codes, no equations. And a lot of things my professors used to say were that if you can find a way to cheat in the art world, go for it, and they'll pass you. Another thing that you're going to be doing is life drawing, and that's what a typical life drawing class will look like in a typical classroom in art school. Figure drawing has been done for hundreds of years and is the absolute best way to learn how to draw. And if you go to a technical art school, they're going to teach you pretty much from drawing from life and from the figure. And it's also extremely difficult. And if you can master the human form, you can draw anything. You'll pretty much start out with like the bottom left-hand corner image and the center image, which is more gestural, learning about the facial structures, the planes of the body, and learning things like like the eyes on a portrait are always halfway between the chin and the top of the head. The chin to the nose is the same amount as the nose to the eyebrows, which is the same amount to the eyebrows to the head. So things like that, proportional aspects. So toward the end of my sophomore year, I actually went into the college as an illustration major just because I really didn't know anything about the art world and really didn't know anything about fine art world. And I actually changed my major to oil painting and fine art my sophomore year. So after my first year as an oil painting major, I had been visiting galleries every weekend and kind of got the itch to show. But with no portfolio except for my classwork, I knew that no gallery would accept me. I decided to team up with a good friend of mine, Sergio Farfan, and curate a one-night pop-up exhibit. So we got some of our friends together and really made something special. We charged a small buy-in fee to show, which covered the cost of the space, and artists kept 100% of what sold, and every single artist that night sold something. This was also where the owner of my current gallery representation, Vertical Gallery, saw my work for the first time. So these were a few pieces from the exhibit and really the beginning of my work as a whole. When I was 18, my grandmother passed away and my grandfather on the other side of my family passed away a few months later. These were my first personal experiences with death, and for a while I became obsessed with the concept of life and transformation. These two birds, we have birds' nests around my house every year, and I actually found them on the ground. And around the same time as passing of my grandparents, so I decided to photograph them and paint them in a sort of documentation and celebration of life. And when you paint from life or photograph, you discover so much more about your subject matter, but also about yourself. So right before I was given the opportunity to show, the opportunity to do this mural through Vertical Gallery with Dutch artist Colin van der Slaus. And it was an enormous 12-story mural downtown. There's a short. So this is pretty much what got me in the door. And I gained a really good friend out of it. So me and Colin stay in touch all the time. We've collaborated on pieces, and he assists me whenever, or I assist him, sorry, whenever he comes to Chicago to work on murals. So from there, I was asked to be a part of a group show at Vertical Gallery, and this was honestly a dream come true. I thought it'd be years before I was able to show at a gallery like this, and this was kind of my end goal gallery. Vertical Gallery is a contemporary gallery known to mostly show international street artists and a few Chicago artists, and I'd been visiting for a few years, and that's actually how I met the owner, and through that, I got the project for the mural, and through that, he saw my work at the show, and then I was able to show there. So for about a year, so about, I think it was 2016 or 2017, I did about 12 random pop-up shows. They were mostly bars, coffee shops, and places like that, but I wanted to do something more serious and curate another exhibit. Again, sorry about my bird. It's going crazy again. So being an artist, you know, it's about being part of a large community of like-minded people. So it's really important to go out, meet people, and grow together. And it's really about the old phrase, you know, it's about who you know. And it's very true. Every opportunity that I have ever gotten from is either word of mouth or just from going out and meeting people along the way. So this was one of the pieces from that show, which was later turned into a mural in Logan Square, which is still there. Nature has been a core value in my work, and I've always felt a deep connection to flora and fauna, as most of us do. The mask was a physical plaster cast of a living tree placed over another self-portrait, blurring the lines between spatial planes and touching on the idea of protection, both in the sense of us and nature. My work took a slight shift. My senior year became a lot lighter aesthetically and more experimental with execution. The entire painting is built out to mimic a birdhouse in the center and had a physical light behind it, which could be switched on and off. I always built out my own panels, but this is kind of the first time I did something like this. This bird with the little spray paint cap on his head was kind of my first dive into surrealism. I always kind of had imposter syndrome when I would try to implement this in my work because I wanted to live up to my idols like Dali, Magritte, and really the artists of the surrealist and Dadaist period. So this was another piece that was part of my senior portfolio. It's 4 foot by 6 foot. It's life-size, done in 90% spray paint and pretty much 10% oil paint. So I wanted to see how far I could push spray paint in creating a realistic image. It's titled Reflection, and it's a painting that represents not only the physical mimicking of the figure and the deceased rabbit, but also the contemplation of empathy. Finding a rabbit in the woods in this form is surreal in and of itself, but to lay down next to it becomes something a lot more. So on to my current body of work. So as Amanda stated, I had my first solo show titled Biophilia this past June at Vertical Gallery. Spent about a year creating 17 paintings and 16 ink studies in preparation for this event. This is of course a very interesting time to have a solo exhibit, but with everything going on, the show sold out and we were able to actually open to the public for the final 2 weeks. Biophilia is a term coined by explorer Edward O. Wilson and is described as humans' innate tendency to seek connections with nature. And keep that in mind when looking at my work. So this painting was the main show image. I wanted to show you guys my process in creating my work as a whole. So first, there's always something that inspires me and gives me an idea. So my piece is directly inspired by Rene Magritte's The Lovers 2 from 1928 in the bottom right-hand corner. His piece is about isolation and the inability to unveil the true intimacy of nature, whereas my piece is about our connection through nature and the blending of two people in a loving embrace. So once I had the idea, I was set up and shoot my own reference photos. For this painting, I went and bought artificial vines, wrapped mine in my girlfriend's head. And I had to keep running back with the vines wrapped around my head to the camera to set the timer and jump back. And it was extremely hard, but totally well worth it at the end. And this was one of my favorite paintings and probably one of the strongest pieces in the show. After I have the reference, I'll do an ink study to make sure I understand lighting and composition. A lot of times my work is a combination of multiple photographs, so I have to make sure that it makes sense before moving on to the panel. Next, I would build the panel and start on the painting. I typically spend anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks on a painting and work on multiple at a time when I can. Oil is a tough medium. It's extremely slow drying, and if you've worked in acrylic most of your life, which a lot of high school students do just because it's cheaper to be able to gain the material, it takes a long time to be able to master oil painting. And most of my work is about 2 to 4 layers built up. This is another piece titled Forged Through Years of Rough Waters, and it's about how life shapes us. When you look at a stream, there's a hustle of rushing waters, but within that stream is a rock. Still, the rock is still within the water and is being shaped by the crashing current over hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's basically about how life and our experiences shape us as we go. But this is only my interpretation, and that's the cool thing about art, is that you can look at anything and you're going to be able to come up with a different reason because you are you and you've lived your experiences. This painting is titled Looking Forward and is of my little brother. I took this photo of him in this pose, which was not easy because he's 10 years old and doesn't want to sit still. It's about him standing on a stump with sticks in his hands, plant growing from his body, and a bird's nest placed above his head as an egg floats above it. My brother and I share a significant age gap of 15 years, and watching him grow up can be rather scary in this world. So this piece is about protection and how we need to make conscious decisions in our lives to ensure that the next generation can thrive. So this piece titled Worship comes from 2 different sources. About a year ago, we got backyard chickens, and they've been awesome and interesting pets. But I was also listening to this BBC Earth podcast about rituals in the animal kingdom and how we tend to portray humanistic acts on animals when we don't really know if they are. So really what I was trying to do with this piece, for a species to survive, it must reproduce and protect its young so that they can go on and do the same. We are not so different from animals when we share, we're not so different from animals in this aspect. And I wanted the painting depicting a giant floating egg and a group of chickens circling its shadow to feel kind of like a ritual in this aspect. Whoop, went too far. The piece on the left, titled Gaze, was one of my first for the exhibit and was turned into a large-scale mural at my favorite brewery, Unane in Hubbard's Cave in Niles. I know you guys aren't old enough to drink, but you can still go there, check it out, and they have great barbecue. When I mentioned that it's all about who you know, I got this gig through the brewery owner's wife. I started and own an artist service and woodworking company, and I've been doing that for about 3 years called ARTbuilt. We do custom framing, canvases, panels, shipping crates, pretty much anything artists need. So she had a few things framed with me, and in that time, she came into my studio, saw my work, absolutely loved it. And her husband was opening up this brewery, and they've been looking for an artist for months, and they loved my work and asked me to do it. This is still one of my favorite murals, and I love going there and checking it out. Another mural that I was super excited to be a part of this year was Murals for Medical Relief. This was a month-long mural project to raise funds for the frontline workers this year. And we raised about $20,000, and super. It was covered by every major news outlet. I actually did a live interview with ABC7 Chicago to talk about it. And projects like this, like because it was for a charity, the artists didn't get paid, but their supplies were covered, and we sold prints to actually pay the artists. So still made money off of it, but we made about I think it was $25,000 for charity, which was great. So on to my current work, my literally brand new work. My gallery hasn't even seen it. This is actually for a show in December. If you guys are around, it's at Vertical Gallery. Come check it out. So these 3 pieces are part of the new work that I'm calling a still life series. It's not still life in the sense of typical objects sitting still. Each painting has a similar aesthetic, blue sky, wooden platform that set the stage for the narrative. So I'll have about 10 paintings for the show and about 5 new drawings. It's a continuation of my solo show and embodies a similar concept of nature and the natural world and our connection to it. So the piece on the left, titled Life Cycle, contains a lot of symbolism. Broken pot can relate to a broken system. Sprouting plant signifies growth. And a crumpled piece of paper directly relates to value in the sense that a crumpled piece of paper on its own has no value, but executed as a hyper-realistic painting becomes priceless. And when you add it all together, you get something totally different. Before I get into the meaning of the centerpiece, think about walking up to this painting in a gallery and then reading the title, Self-Portrait. This clearly isn't a self-portrait in the typical sense, but has humanistic qualities. The red flowers must mean something to the artist, or why else would they be specifically that flower or red? And really, art is about asking questions rather than giving answers. So whether you analyze art, you should always be taking clues from the artist that the artist has given you and make an educated guess to its meaning. So when you break it down, you can infer the eye and the hand are both referenced from me. The hand in the dirt can symbolize being grounded in a root system, and the red carnation is the national flower of Sicily, which is my heritage. So the painting on the right, titled Attraction, is really about traction. The Venus flytrap is a carnivorous plant, meaning that it eats meat, and it attracts its prey by displaying vibrant coloring and the smells it gives off to insects. We could tell so much about a person just by looking at their eyes, and it said that you can feel the strongest emotions just at a glance. So I wanted to kind of show you guys my process as well and how the layers are built up in oil paint. So this was the painting of, yes?
Hey, Joe, I just wanted to pop in and say, in about 5 minutes, we'll turn it over to our Q&A.
Okay.
So students, as Joe finishes up the last couple of slides, if you have any questions that you've thought of, go ahead and drop them into the chat, and I'll ask those to Joe when he's finished with his presentation. Go ahead, Joe.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said, I want to show you kind of the buildup of painting. So this is a style called trompe-l'oeil, which is hyperrealism basically, and mimicking something from life, or trying to make something, or kind of deceive the audience into believing that something is something else. So as you can see, the drawing on the right kind of starts building up over time. But again, this was about 4 layers-ish and about 12 hours of work just for this piece of paper. And the piece is actually behind me. So there was also the broken pot, the flower or the plant itself. So all in all, it probably took about 20 hours, 20, 25 hours to make something like this. And when you talk about selling paintings or the cost of a painting, you know, it takes a long time to be able to really get the value for your work that you put into it. So, you know, this took, let's say 20 hours. It's going to be sold at a gallery for $1,000. Gallery takes 50%. I make $500 at the end of the day. Is it worth it? Maybe not when you know, if you're talking about hourly wage, kind of, but it's a stepping stone. So as you start, you're able to increase your prices over the time. So this painting, you know, 4 years ago would probably be worth $200 or $300. Now, because I've built this career, it's worth $1,000. And because my show sold out, we can raise the prices 15, 20%. And then when you can get amazing projects too, like the brewery project, I spent a week painting it and I made $6,500. So, you know, it's kind of a give and take, but it's also a lifelong process in making a living off of your work. So because you guys obviously can't see detail in a, you know, we're not doing it in a gallery. I wanted to put a couple detail photos in here for you to see. So I really work with a very, very, very tiny brush for my last layer and really go in and detail out a lot of stuff. Even the broken pot was a photograph that I took. I went and I broke a real pot and I started stringing it up, taping it to my ceiling, taping it to the floor so that I could actually get the lighting right and the color right. So this is another couple detail photos. And as you can see, like a lot of the stuff is photographed and done, but I mean, if you actually look at the photos, they look similar to the painting, but not exact at all. So there's a lot of stuff that I still have to have that educated background to be able to create and still make look real in the end. So I don't know how much time we left to get to questions, but a couple little things for advice is just, you know, be persistent, be confident, believe in yourself. My father told me growing up, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's really true. You know, that's what it comes down to for anything. And, you know, your goal as an artist it doesn't always have to be to make a living off of it. You can make art for fun, therapeutic reasons. You could be a graphic designer, tattoos, you could teach. There's so many infinite avenues that you can take as an artist. There's also no good or bad art. I know people think that if you can't make something look like something, then it's bad art, but that's totally not true, because if you walk around the Art Institute, there is hundreds and hundreds of different types of art. There's blank canvases on the wall, which when I was your age, I thought were ridiculous. And then I went to school and totally have a different concept of it. But it's not an easy career choice, but it's totally fulfilling. And it takes many years to make a living off of your work, but you feel accomplished totally throughout the entire way of doing it. So really just be persistent, be confident, believe in yourself. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Joe. We've got a couple, oh, that's great. Students, we've got his Insta and website there if you want to make a note to follow along on Joe's career. We've got a couple good questions. What do you do when you lack motivation or inspiration?
Oh, man, those are fun times. It comes and goes, right? So like you can't force inspiration. Like if I were feeling uninspired and I sat down and I looked at a blank piece of paper, that piece of paper would stay blank. I think as an artist, I mean, we all take our inspiration from outside sources. So really, if you're feeling uninspired, you know, for me, I go take a walk in the woods, or, you know, I'll just walk around my block, and there's things that pop out to you to be able to do it. But you kind of need to almost distract yourself, because when you start thinking, oh, I'm not doing enough, oh, I'm not creating enough, I'm so uninspired, like you just stay that way. That's why it's important. I mean, you have to learn about what you're interested in and be able to immerse yourself in something else to be able to be inspired to create.
Thank you. So how many times do you sketch out or practice the skills for a project before making the final piece?
I mean, as you kind of see, like, I think I'm still screen shared, like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I go through, where is it? I mean, just here, my thought process with the lovers piece, if it'll go back, there we go. So, I mean, you're talking about photographing and playing around with like probably 6 or 7 photographs. So that's one step that I take to final image once I have an idea. The second sketch, and you know, I don't, this was kind of, my show was the first time I did the ink studies and the ink sketches and actually sold them. A lot of my sketches before were literally just like doodles. And I would just like quickly draw it out and figure it out. But I mean, it's kind of just whatever it takes. Like when I do a mural, um, I'll spend a lot more time preparing. Like I'll spend like 3 or 4 days either drawing something out that I think is going to be really hard on the mural, or taking a piece of wood and practicing it in my studio or something, just so I know when I get there, I can execute it and knock it out in a timely manner. But I mean, it's really just as much as it takes to get to the outlook or the way you want it to be.
So Joe, being so accomplished and also relatively young in your career, what goals are you thinking about?
Oh man, I don't know. So like, I mean, I want to, so like, I don't want to be in Chicago my whole life. I've pretty much lived in Chicago my whole life. I want to live near nature. I mean, you can see my work. I want to be inspired by it every day. So now that I'm kind of establishing myself in Chicago, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I've done a lot, but I've really just scratched the surface of being an accomplished living artist. Once I'm established in Chicago, I do want to start showing outside of Chicago. So I've kind of pitched myself to a couple galleries in Portland and Colorado, just people that I've met along the way. The show in December was actually supposed to be for Scope Miami, which is a huge art fair that happens every single year. So I was really excited for that, but then it just got canceled. So they're doing it at the gallery. So whatever. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's really just getting to a point in my career where this is what I'm making a living off of, and this is what I'm doing. Right now, like my business, thankfully, has been doing extremely well the past 3 years that I've been running it, and that's how I basically make the supplement for my money, to be able to make a living and pay rent and do whatever else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ms. Sabah, do you have any other questions that you think would be beneficial for your class to hear from Joe? We've got about 6 minutes left.
I feel like I'm trying to think of any. I know that you went to the American Academy of Art.
Yep.
Did you also go to grad school, or no? You just
No, I have not gone to grad school.
got.
I've thought about it, but it's like, one, it's crazy expensive, but it's also, at that point, they assume that you have the skills necessary to create something. So all they teach you is how to think about art. And a lot of times, if you don't fully understand what you're doing, they're going to manipulate you into making what they want. And that's not that I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm still so young in my career that I'd rather have like 5 years under my belt of creating a certain style under a certain concept before I do something like that.
Right. I guess maybe, and you kind of touched on it. Maybe a question is establishing how did you establish the relationships? Because it is like who you know, and you know who can like give you a leg up to say, hey, we'd like to have you show here. But I know you touched on that, but can you explain a little bit deeper, just kind of what it takes to kind of establish these long-term relationships so that you have some more opportunities?
For sure. So like, it's really important to establish early on what you want to do. So like, I'm telling you, as like, my goal as an artist was to be in galleries, to show in galleries. If your goal as an artist to be a comic book writer, completely different, or a comic book illustrator, or to be a storyboard illustrator, or to only do murals, like it's a completely different path. But the similarities are that you need to go out and learn about your field. You have to understand that, you know, every aspect of it. So for me, it was like, I went to every gallery opening that I possibly could for about 2 years. And I kept showing up at the same galleries. And even like the way that I met the owner of Vertical Gallery was that I showed up for the 5th or 6th time and he recognized my face to him. Like, hey, you know, I see you around here all the time. Like, what do you think of the show? And we would just have these great conversations about the work. I didn't even know he was the owner for the first like 3 or 4 times I met him. And then he would see me at other openings and be like, hey, how's it going? You know, and then he found out through someone else that I was an artist and then invited me to do the mural. And through the mural, again, He saw the work at the show. And that's the thing too, is like, galleries, especially super high-end contemporary galleries, will never show artists that are super young because it's not going to make them money. That's what it comes down to. But when you look at like the urban contemporary world, which is basically street artists, muralists, stuff like that, they're so humble. A lot of them are extremely young. There's galleries like Gallery F, All Star Press, Chicago Trueborn, that they try artists out for big group shows all the time. And like, if they like the work, then they're going to continue showing you. But really, it's about going out, meeting people, not going in, walking into a gallery like, hey, I'm an artist. Look at my Instagram. Look, and or just berating them, because they get it. They get it all the time. They get hundreds of emails every day saying, hey, I want to be in your gallery. I'm an artist. But that's really what it comes down to. So like, I mean, even though I went to college, like, I mean, I don't think their career service program was that great. And all the opportunities I got was because I either went out and met someone, or I curated my own show and people came out to see it. And, it's about doing it yourself. You're your own business, and you really need to think about it that way.
Yeah, I really enjoyed when you were talking about your own pop-up shows and getting together with your friends and organizing that way. That was brilliant, because sometimes it's always about, I got to get into a gallery, it's like, what can you do? You have a platform already with Instagram, with, online presence, and then also like getting friends and stuff together to help support,
I mean, I will show you too, like, so like this, where'd it go? My computer is lagging. Oh my God. So like, out of the 15 people that showed in our second show, I mean, I'm still great friends with pretty much all of them, but I want to say like 6 of them are still showing. And even like Kayla Mahaffey, which is the shorter African-American girl with the bun on her head, she just had her first museum show. And this was her second gallery show 4 years ago. And this is one of her paintings here. Like, she's an amazing artist. And like, we were able to, like, we were all not like no one's back then, we were able to come together and create this.
You never know.
Exactly. Yeah. I like that. But we were all able to come together and do this like fun one-night pop-up show. We were all great friends, and a lot of us have, kept going with it and kept advancing. And it's really been great to see everyone grow as well.
Nice.
So in our last minute, if you could give your high school self one piece of advice, what do you think it would be?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like I said, I was a terrible student in high school, and like, I want to say work harder, but like, I was so focused on being an artist. Like, I knew, because I was accepted to the academy sophomore year, and as soon as I was accepted, I was like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do, and everything went out the door. So, I mean, I guess it would just be something that I already did, but like, just whatever you want to do, go at it with a passion, go at it with dedication, and really just, keep going with it. Because I mean, nothing's easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So kind of go at it that way, I guess.
Thank you. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. Students, this presentation has been recorded, and we'll make sure that all of the visual arts faculty has access to it to share with you if you missed anything that you want to revisit. And again, Joseph's presentation is up on our website, along with his Instagram and website and all of that. So definitely go give him a follow and follow along on his career, okay? All right. Thank you all so much for being here, Joe. Thank you very much. Have a good week, everybody.